Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And with me in this episode, I have someone who is an empowerment trainer, best-selling author, and a divorce lawyer with a heart. Sonia Frontera, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. And how are you doing today?
Oh, it's been a hectic day. We had tornado warnings here in New Jersey, and we lost power. We have wires down, and no. I am broadcasting live from the Holland Township Library. I have no internet or power at home.
All right. Well, let's hope this survives in the library anyway. But libraries are supposed to be a little bit quiet, so hopefully the audience don't mind today anyway. Sometimes people do live podcasts and there's an audience there anyway, so not to worry. Anyway, so you're a lawyer by trade for definite, but you're also an empowerment trainer. So that's quite an interesting mix. Does that conflict with both work?
Actually, not at all. And in fact, it was the fact that I switched a little bit my career that enabled me to become an empowerment trainer. I was in government and litigation for a number of years. And then I became disabled with migraines, and I decided to go solo and do my own thing. And little opportunities started coming up, and I received an invitation to be an empowerment trainer for domestic violence survivors with a local domestic violence agency. And I love training, and I just reconnected with something that I really enjoyed. And I decided I wanted to do that, having been able to publish a book. And it was something that really makes me feel alive, and I enjoy it. So there's really no conflict. And in fact, it's really good as an attorney to empower your clients, especially in a divorce situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's really, it's quite an emotional kind of journey. Divorce in itself is,
yes,
big thing, isn't it? So. But before we talk about your book and the training and obviously your divorce lawyer work, you even had to experience yourself with a toxic relationship that you had to get out of as well, didn't you, really? So tell us your story before we move on to your work.
Sure. When I was 24 years old, I got married to the love of my life, and I found out within 24 hours that I had married a psychologically abusive man. And that was a very difficult situation for me. I was a very sheltered, conservative girl who was trying to get married and stay married, and finding myself in this position, I had no idea what to do. So it took me 7 years of empowering myself to be able to get out. And that's why I'm so passionate about empowering others, because I don't want them to go through what I went through in my marriage.
Yeah. No, it's quite a thing. Was that while you was working as a divorce lawyer or training or?
No, not at all. I was actually, I was very young. I was right out of college, and I was doing human resources at the time. And I decided to go to law school because I was not enjoying the type of work I was doing. And I felt like at the age of 25, I was at a dead end of my life. So I decided to go to a law school after that. And in fact, right after law school, I clerked in family court. So I got to experience divorce law right after my divorce. And I decided at the time, I don't want to do this. It's really toxic. So I went, my life journey has been roundabout and not at all linear. So I'm doing this divorce practice now, later in life, many years later.
Yeah. Well, people change their careers, and usually it's, something that might experience, that's whether it's good or bad, they sort of say, I think I want to do this work, whether it's humanitarian or like what you're doing, helping people now with these two things you're doing in your book. How have you transformed your obstacles into opportunities in your own personal life then?
Well, actually, I have found that every time an obstacle comes my way, it makes me feel stronger and more alive, and it brings out my resilience. So as I have gone through all these different experiences, I try to come out with something positive from them, try to learn some lessons. And when it came to my divorce, I didn't really do that much with it until I was in law school. And they were looking for interns to work in the domestic violence unit. And then I found out, there's some really good work to be done here. And as I became ill with migraines and I had to end my litigation practice, that gave me yet another opportunity to reinvent myself and use all these adversities for a greater purpose. And now I'm using it to be able to help others, people who are in unhappy marriages and people who are struggling with issues of self-esteem and power.
I see. Okay. Well, obviously talking about obstacles, is there any obstacles while you're trying to do this work and healing the relationships of others?
Right now, I'm just feeling that my only obstacle is trying to learn and immerse myself in a different kind of role. Having worked as an attorney exclusively for more than 20 years, and now I'm into the world of publishing and the world of training and public speaking. So it's just a matter of trying to juggle all these roles at the same time and do a good job at all of them.
Yeah. No, well, they all linked, aren't they, really? I mean, your book must be obviously related with, the other things you do and the other lawyer and empowerment trainer. Tell us more about the empowerment trainer then. So someone asked you to come and join, but obviously you had experience of empowering yourself from your own experience. Tell us about that, how that all evolved and what you do in empowerment training.
Well, I started out doing an empowerment training program for domestic violence survivors, and this was financial empowerment for women, and that led me into wanting to do more of it. And what I normally do, I typically don't work one-on-one with people unless they're my clients in a divorce situation. But in terms of empowerment, I prefer to do public speaking and workshops, because I really enjoy the interaction between participants, because we have so much to learn from one another. So I run workshops that are usually live, they're interactive, they're fun, so that people can engage in self-reflection and understand how they end up in situations that do not serve them, how their thought and behavior patterns from the past keep on snowballing into situations that are unhappy and negative and that limit them. And then with that self-reflection, they can use that knowledge about themselves and undo their negative thinking to create a different narrative in their life and recognize the power that they have to make the right decisions and create their happiness on their own terms.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is one of the biggest decision-making things to do, and quite a harrowing one, isn't it, really? So, yes. I mean, as a divorce lawyer, when can you tell someone to fight for their marriage or when to dart for the door?
Well, I think that's a very, very difficult situation that has tremendous life consequences. And in fact, statistics show that between 32 and 50% of people who divorce regret it later. So I don't want anyone I work with to go through that experience. And in fact, when I was unhappily married and I saw that statistic, and that was many, many moons ago, when I saw that statistic, it's like, I don't want to find myself in a situation of regret, and I want to make sure I'm making the right decision. So I encourage people to do a lot of reflection, to evaluate the viability of their marriages and decide whether or not they can be saved. Try to find good on the other person. See what brought them together in the first place, and is that glue still together? And if it's not, try to find other ways to reconnect. And if after doing all the homework, they are convinced that they cannot, their marriages cannot be saved, then they can go ahead in freedom and with a divorce, but in a way that is amicable and conducive to recreating a new life on a clean slate.
Yeah. Well, that's I've heard stories of I've heard a couple of people who got married again. They got divorced and got married again.
That's right.
Is that true? You've come across that, all right? Well, that's weird. I mean, how does that work? I mean, I'm sure you don't want to talk about your cases too much, but what happened in those situations that you've seen those cases?
I haven't seen them in my practice, but I had seen them in my life. In fact,
right.
when I was 17 years old, I met a woman. We traveled on a tour, and she and her husband had been married and divorced 3 times.
Oh my! I mean, Hollywood, yeah, you hear about that sort of thing, maybe. Well, they're certainly getting married many times over.
Yeah, but to each other.
Yeah, I know. To each other, that's a different thing.
To each other. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, apart from being expensive, it's different when
Very.
you're just in a relationship, without the marriage. But yeah, that's
Yeah, but it does happen. It just happens
Yeah,
because
yeah.
sometimes people realize, we all think that the grass is always greener on the other side, and that single life is going to be wonderful, and that ending the marriage is going to end up the problems, and that's why it's so important to the reflection, because wherever you go, there you are, and if
Yeah.
you're carrying with you all the baggage that you have internally, and you carry it into other relationships, or you carry it into your new life as a single person, you're never going to get ahead. So you really need to do the homework and come to terms with what is it that is creating these toxic situations in the first place.
Yeah. But sometimes you can do all that and you're on the fence a bit. So what would your message be to people who are just not very happy, but they're on the fence? Should I, shouldn't I? I know it's a bit like saying when to dart for the door and fight for your marriage, but if you're on the fence, it's kind of, you're in that situation where you might make the wrong decision and get married again, like the 3 times married person, or face, staying with a person you shouldn't be, and you could have found out when you did find a divorce you shouldn't have stayed in that relationship. What's your message to people that's on the fence?
Well, they do have, and people don't realize when they're going through a toxic relationship, or a relationship that is not satisfying, they don't realize that they have the inner wisdom to make the right decisions. And we all have it. I think it's important to quiet down, and I recommend doing meditation and tapping into the power of their intuition, so that they can make decisions that are free from negativity, that come from their higher selves, and that lead to decisions that are for the highest good. So I think it's key for people to recognize that they have that power, and that they have access to the power of their intuition to make those decisions instead of making them in haste. These decisions are very important, should never be made in haste or under the power of negative emotions like anger, hatred, desires of revenge. So they really need to clear themselves internally in order to make that decision properly.
Yeah, no, I can see that really being, on top of it. Decision making while you're under a lot of stress, that must be really difficult though. I mean, I know the meditation and mindfulness will help a hell of a lot, but it's still going to affect the decision making, isn't it?
Yes. So you really need to let go of those thoughts that are repetitive, and they're making you. It's the narrative. We don't realize it, but we live by an inner narrative constantly, or we interpret the things our partners do based on that narrative. For example, if let's say your husband comes in and he doesn't talk to you, then you start thinking, oh, he's not interested in me. He's mad at me for some reason. Maybe there's something I did. Instead of thinking of other possibilities, that maybe the person had a bad day at work. Maybe the person is not feeling well health-wise, or is preoccupied with something that he or she doesn't want to tell you about because he doesn't want to hurt, worry you. So instead of giving into those narratives, it is critical to just let go and just be in the present, and be open to let things unfold naturally and openly. For example, if your partner, like I said, is not talking to you, it's like, hey, are you okay? Anything I can do for you? Do you want to talk? Instead of starting to assume all these kinds of negative situations that may or may not be true.
Yeah. I mean, when you don't talk, things are going around in your mind, and the other person isn't hearing it. They might hear it in terms of body language, and that's still going to give a lot more guesswork, because it's like there's something bothering you. You're saying no, but you see what's the problem? Nothing, but really there is, isn't there, from the body language?
Yes, and communication is so key. You need to be able to communicate and keep on trying. And, we're not expert communicators, but I think with practice and with commitment, and especially the intention to make it work and be positive.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously divorce is a very, very horrible thing going through it, because obviously you're going through courts and bringing up things and fighting over children. That's a really big issue, isn't it?
It is a terrible issue, and I tell parents that their kids come first and their well-being comes first. Regardless of what your partner did or you perceived it to you that is wrong, you still owe it to your children to have a harmonious relationship with your ex-partner so that they can be happy. And children often, especially younger ones, are afraid that the entire debacle is their fault, and they need to be reassured that they're loved, that the parents not getting along has nothing to do with them, and that the other parent is still the parent, and that they need to love them and respect them instead of trying to create discord, because that is never good for the children or for yourself, because when you are coming from a negative place, you are really hurting yourself.
Yeah. And in the UK, I think they've passed the law already, but there's a new divorce law where it's like a no-fault divorce. So basically what it does is there to protect the children because of what you've just mentioned. And also the other person can't contest. So you can say, I'm getting a divorce. You can just put it through, and then there's no contesting or anything, no reasons. You don't even have to give a reason why,
And I think that's great. And it's really funny because some people are against that, thinking that making divorce too easy is going to make people just run to the courthouse. But that is not true. Most people take this decision seriously. And by making it no fault, you're really avoiding people dragging their dirty laundry into the courtroom in a public forum. And they no longer have that need to hurt one another and say bad things about one another. If they can just say, this is not working out, we don't get along, they can just move on without hurting each other.
Yeah, I mean, people that aren't unmarried couples, they can do it. I mean, it's still hurtful what they're going through, but it's the paperwork and the litigation that's taken out of that equation, isn't it?
Yes, and it's very expensive, and it's very toxic, and it's very draining emotionally.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. So, but anyway, any contract you sign, you have to realise that marriage is like a business contract as well, isn't it? So
it is.
You have to go through all that because you signed a paper. It's like that, really.
It is.
So, I'm married myself, but no chance of anything like that happening. For sure.
Good. I hope you stay happily married.
Yeah. Well. Well, let's say people now are divorced. I mean, there is also, a period where they're having trouble recovering from that as well. As it's just as bad going through all that in the courts and that. But once say they do finally get divorced, how do people recover from a divorce? What would how can people generate feelings of success while going through recovering from a divorce?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think we are very much harmed by the myth that divorce is a failure, and people feel like a failure when they're going through a divorce or after a divorce, or many people stay in bad relationships out of that fear of being perceived as a failure. And to them, I say, divorce is not a failure. It's an experience. It's a teaching moment for you. And the important thing is, instead of feeling like a failure, try to extract the lessons from the experience, and consider your ex-spouse a teacher in your life who gave you an amazing opportunity to learn about yourself and about life. And when you end this experience, bless your spouse and the experience with love and gratitude, and move on from a place of integrity. And for people who are going through the divorce, I recommend to start thinking about it as something that's going to take you to the next level in your life, instead of something that's going to generate failure. And start doing things that make you feel successful. Start thinking about those things you want to do once the divorce is over. Do them now. It's not later. Now is the only time when you can do something. So if you are contemplating going through or recovering from divorce, Don't see it as a failure and start looking for ways to recreate your life. Focus on creation as opposed to what you're losing by ending your marriage.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously come across people in my life, divorced people, and some of them really do feel bitter and twisted still, like even 10 years down the road or whatever, it's, it still stays with them.
Yes, that's right. And it's one thing that I say is don't remain divorced to your spouse. Divorce from your spouse, because many people end their marriages, but they're still tied emotionally to their exes in different ways. If you're constantly talking about your spouse or thinking about your spouse or having revenge fantasies, having your children spy for you, or checking on social media and find out what they're doing, or trying to post things to make your ex jealous, you are not free. You're not emotionally available to rebuild your life with another partner. So start focusing on yourself, becoming your best friend, and trying to cultivate self-love and self-expression so you can be the best you possible and enjoy your life. And then when you feel happy about who you are and comfortable with yourself, then you can recouple and have a healthy relationship with another person, but not until you do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some, I know obviously men get pointed out, but it does happen to women as well. Well, women do it as well sometimes, but they're dating inside the marriage. But obviously the marriage is on its way out anyway, and that can be part of the reason for having it, the failed relationship of the marriage. It's because of that. It could be used as part of that, isn't it, really, when it goes to court. But, well, basically I'm talking about cheating, but you're dating someone behind their back, aren't you? Whether it's the male or the female that's done it. How can, if the best way to do it, obviously, is to get divorced first, which could take ages, then date
Yes.
someone afterwards, But how can, what's your thoughts about dating after divorce? Is there a right time you could do it?
The right time is when you are ready. Don't do it because you feel alone. I think the most important thing is not dating for the wrong reasons. There's many wrong reasons to start dating during or after divorce. And, when you're doing it because you're not comfortable being alone, you don't think you're capable of taking care of yourself. When you're afraid to walk into a room and into a home and be empty, when you recouple for those reasons, you're not recoupling for anything, for a reason that's going to be conducive to a happy relationship. You're doing it out of insecurity and negativity. And do you really want that to be the basis for your relationship, for your new life? So like I said earlier, it's really important to become best friends with yourself, be comfortable in your own skin, and be happy, because when you are happy and fulfilled, you're bringing something positive for a new relationship, for a new life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's think on the positive and try and sort of turn some unhappy marriages back happy again. What would your message be? What could you tell me could be the secret sauce to happiness in the relationships in general, as well as married couples?
I think for anyone, this applies to everyone, but in terms of relationships, first of all, you need to acknowledge that you deserve to be happy. Many of us think life is meant to be hard, difficult, painful. I don't know if you have this expression in the UK that we have in the US, life is a bitch and then you die.
Yeah.
You have it?
Yeah, but I think it's more of an American saying, but yeah, we do know of that saying, yeah. Or
Yes.
life is a beach, if you're in a nice beach. But yeah, it's, we have heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, so when you have that mentality that you're not meant to be happy, you are not going to be happy. So first of all, you have to acknowledge that you deserve to be happy. And also in relationships, we have the mindset that our relationships are supposed to be happy. And we hear someone saying, oh, my husband doesn't make me happy. My wife doesn't make me happy. Your spouse is not responsible for your happiness. You are responsible for your own happiness. And by the same token, you are not responsible for the other person's happiness. And you need to acknowledge that in order to have a healthy relationship. And finally, you need to know that you can create the happiness you deserve on your terms. It's your responsibility, and it's also a project, an exciting project that you should take on with joy. And the confidence that you can create it, you can do it. You're here equipped to have to do and create anything you want in your life. And when you give yourself that permission, then you can be happy and make it something that is fun getting to. And live with happiness every moment. Happiness is a state of mind. It's not something that happens when you retire or when your children go to college, or when you finish a degree or when you change jobs. Happiness is something that you can create in the moment, anytime. It's within your reach.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I mean, talking about all that, you have actually written a couple of books on, particularly on that, Solve the Divorce Dilemma and Relationship Solutions. Tell us a little bit more about those books.
Well, I always wanted to be a writer since I was in high school. And then in recent years, I finally had the opportunity to make my own hours. And I decided to start writing. And I was inspired by attending a retreat for women. And the subject matter of the retreat was forgiveness. And during this retreat, it was evident that a lot of the participants were still suffering from divorces that had taken place in the past. And some of them were hurting in marriages in the present moment. So I figured this is a really good opportunity for me to bring my experience, both personal and professional, to help others so that they don't have to go through what I went through. The way I put it is I like to share the shortcuts to happiness. So the first book was for women, and it was entitled Solve the Divorce Dilemma. Do you keep your husband or do you post him on Craigslist? And that is to help women who are on the fence assess the viability of their marriages, understand how they ended up in this situation, and give them the tools so they can create happiness on their terms, whether they remain in the relationships or they end them. And this book was very popular. It was a bestseller. And curiously, it got the attention of men. I wrote it for women because I was told that you need to niche down in the publishing industry, that men don't read this sort of thing. They're not interested. And I was very surprised that guys started reading the book and providing the feedback. And they said, this is just for women. It's biased towards women. And I decided it would be a good opportunity to write a sequel and make it gender neutral so it could be used by both men and women, and also couples can use it if they want to work on their relationships. And it includes a series of queries and a roadmap so people can also understand whether their marriages can be saved or if they should move on, and how to create happiness on their terms and remain happy and centered in the process of divorce. So those are the two books that I have published so far. There's more down the pike.
Yeah. Wow, that's great stuff, and great information, very useful information for hopefully save a few divorces out there through my show, which I'm quite happy about. Where can people go to find out more information about your books, services, and I'll get also understand some free resources as well you've got to give?
Yes, the best way to connect with me is by visiting my website, soniafrontera.com. And there you will find links to all my social media, and you can learn more about my books, any projects, any podcasts such as this, so you can get to know me better. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, anyone listening, I will actually put this link to our website on the show notes, so you can always refer back to the show notes once you've finished listening to this podcast, which you more or less have done by now. And I'd just like to take the opportunity, Sonia, to say thanks very much for coming on the show and talking to me. I've got free legal advice as well for 1 hour, half an hour. Not that I need it, but basically my audience did. So that's great stuff. And once again, thanks for coming on the show and talking about all this.
Thank you so much for having me and for bringing attention to this really important issue.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.